Hello, welcome back to The World Today on France 24. I'm Cara Scarlett. Thank you very much for being with us. Here's a look at our top story this hour. After Monday's momentous hostage and prisoner swap as part of a crucial Gaza ceasefire agreement, attention now turns to what happens next in peace negotiations, with questions remaining. In the next hour, we'll speak to our correspondents on the ground, and in the studio, we'll speak to Ofer Bronchtein, president of the International Forum for Peace. After more than 2 years in captivity in Gaza, the last living hostages have spent their first night back home in Israel after a momentous hostage and prisoner swap as part of a crucial Gaza ceasefire agreement. You're seeing now live pictures from Hostage Square there on your screen. On Monday, we saw footage that showed emotional reunions between hostages and their families and celebrations on the streets of Israel. Meanwhile, in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, where the ceasefire deal was struck, international and regional leaders signed a declaration meant to cement the US-brokered truce. Though after Monday's joy, attention now turns to the next steps on the path for lasting peace. President Donald Trump, who co-chaired Monday's summit in Egypt, expressed optimism that the most challenging part was over, though others are more tentative about issues like the disarmament of Hamas and the future governance of Gaza. Well, let's check in with our correspondent in Jerusalem, Noga Tarnopolsky. Noga, one thing that we haven't mentioned as well is that there also remains this issue of the remaining dead hostages whose bodies were not returned on Monday. Tell us about what's happening there.
Right. This is actually rapidly turning into quite an issue. And I just heard that Israeli negotiators are working try and get a large number of those coffins, of the cadavers of Israelis, either Israelis who were killed on October 7th and their bodies were dragged into Gaza by Hamas, or hostages who did not survive captivity. What we are hearing, though, is severe critique. There's the Forum of Family Members of Hostages. Already last night, when it became clear that only 4 out of 28 of those bodies would be transferred to Israel, demanded that Israel declare that this is a breach in the agreement. We also have, I found, important criticism from the family of Colonel Asaf Hamimi. He was the top-ranking Israel Defense Forces officer killed on October 7th. His body was taken by his murderers, by his killers, into Gaza. And the family today issued a statement really slamming this sort of party yesterday in the Knesset with President Trump's visit, saying that it was an unseemly circus and it looked more like a campaign rally than a somber state event remembering the sacrifice of Israelis. So the Israeli government, at least, has a bit of a hot potato on its hands. And also, just in general, the Israeli public has become so identified with these families, all of the families of hostages, that if the bodies aren't returned and these families are just left in a kind of limbo, it could rapidly impact an agreement that, we should say, so far there are no implementation mechanisms associated with this agreement.
And Noga, tell us also about what's happening now in Gaza. Is there calm on the streets? We've seen clashes over the weekend. Right, and it touches on the same matter of there being thus far no implementation mechanism. So the Israeli army withdrew per the agreement to a predetermined line, and importantly abandoned all of the major population centers in Gaza. And what we see happening in the days since then is pretty disastrous. Armed Hamas militants are taking over the streets again, and the way they are doing so is by summarily executing in public and filming anyone they perceive as a threat or an enemy. Some of these are members of clans, local clans that oppose Hamas, but some are just random people against whom Hamas, fighters, Hamas terrorists want to exact revenge. So it is a dangerous chaos. It puts in danger the lives of anyone in Gaza, and it gives the lie to
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's claim that Israel would not leave Gaza until Hamas were completely and totally destroyed. Clearly it's not. And this could rapidly unravel, again, in the context of a framework which is miraculous in that it managed to stop the war and free the hostages in a matter of days, but does not yet have any implementation structure associated with it.
All right, Noga, thank you very much for that update. Noga Tarnopolsky reporting live there from Jerusalem. Well, we're going to be going a little deeper in that story with our perspective segment as Ofer Bronchtein joins me in the studio. You're the president and co-founder of the International Forum for Peace and an advisor to French President Emmanuel Macron. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
You've actually just come back from Egypt as you accompanied the French president to that peace summit that we mentioned. We're going to get to that in a little moment, but first, could I just have your reaction to what we saw on Monday, that hostage release and the prisoner swap? How do you see this day, a day full of emotion, and for you, is it a sign of hope?
Listen, I'm quite amazed by the support of an entire country for 2 years already to the hostage families. It's something that I never foresaw before, I never witnessed before. And I saw that yesterday close to 500,000 Israelis were on the street to welcome back their fathers, their son. It was really moving. And at the same time, we were having this summit in Egypt to think and to prepare the next steps, because we cannot just have the release of the hostages and the exchange of prisoners and the release of Palestinian prisoners without thinking forward, because the main goal now, and the international community understood it, the Israeli understood it, the Palestinians understood it. We don't want that to happen, never again. We let the situation between Israel and Palestinians to rotten for too long. Many of them were very satisfied with the status quo, but we know today that this doesn't work anymore. We have to go and to create a situation that it will be a lasting peace between Israel and Palestinian. It will be Israeli being recognized by the Arab and the Muslim world, and the Palestinian state recognized by Israel and the United States. Most of the world already recognize it, as you know, than we were at the UN last month.
A lot of work remains indeed. Can you give us an insight about what was discussed during that summit and if anything that came out of it? I mean, we know that there was that declaration signed, but any tangible moves as to what happens next?
I want to say something about what was said before. The fact that it's true that part of the deal was for all the bodies to be found and to be brought back to their family. But I really hope that nobody is going to look for an excuse or for a reason to go back into fight and to go back into this war because of it. I don't say that it's not important, it's very important. But let's not forget that Gaza is 80% destroyed after 2 years of terrible violence. Then we have millions of tons of rubble, and I don't think that it's a bad faith on behalf of the Palestinian to not to bring somebody. I think that it's very difficult to find them, and we do have a mechanism, an international mechanism with Turkey, with Qatar, with Egypt. Then we'll have to go into Gaza and look for them in the next days and weeks. So I really hope that nobody talk about breaking the deal or looking for reasons to go back into combat, because we won't allow it. We won't allow it. President Trump, first of all, said the war is over, and I believe that he mean it, and he won't let nobody spoil it for him and spoil it for all of us.
What then is the role of France in all of this? We saw Macron obviously in attendance at that summit, and he spoke about how France, obviously we know France has moved to recognize the state of Palestine during that UN General Assembly that you mentioned in September. But what about the reconstruction of Gaza? What other role is it going to play?
Listen, everybody is saying that the deal of the century, of the millennium, made by President Donald Trump in few days. It's not exactly like that. I think that what happened in the last week until this deal was accomplished, it's something that we cooked. We cooked a meal for over a year since we took the initiative with Saudi Arabia to recognize the Palestinian state, for the Arab and Muslim country to recognize Israel, to end the war. And then we went to the UN with another 14 countries to recognize the Palestinian state and to recognize the right of Israel for security and for all the guarantees that Israel should get. And President Donald Trump spoke to Arab leaders in the UN a few weeks ago, and he spoke to President Macron at length in the last few weeks. And he was listening to Israeli public opinion, Donald Trump as well. He witnessed that 80% of the Israeli in the last few months said we don't want to go war anymore and we want the hostages back. So the priority for the Israeli was not to go and to continue the war, as some extreme right ministers in the Israeli cabinet wanted, but to release the prisoner and to end the war. So all this ingredient he kept in mind, and before of that he came to with Turkey. We have to, I think that the presence and the input of Turkey was important as well. We know that the Qatari activity was important. I think that Donald Trump was very upset by what Israel tried to do in Doha by bombing, trying to kill some of the Hamas leaders in Doha without noticing the American. And let's say that, let's not forget that Qatar and the United States are very close. The biggest American military facilities in the Middle East are in Qatar. So I think that he got very upset at Netanyahu. And we saw this picture that was quite humiliating for the Israeli Prime Minister of Donald Trump with his phone on his knees. That's the meeting we were at yesterday together. I was at this meeting, and I will tell you a few words about it, which is one of the things that was very important yesterday. It's to see President Abbas, who was not planned to be on this meeting, coming to Sharm el-Sheikh yesterday, because it's a game changer in many ways. So we saw Donald Trump dictating Prime Minister Netanyahu how he should apologize to the Qatari, and he did it. He cannot refuse Donald Trump. Donald Trump main power, it's not only that he can bring other countries and he brought them into this deal, but it was because he was the only one capable of bringing Netanyahu and to impose on him the deal. We were capable of bringing many others, but he was capable of bringing Netanyahu. And one of the things that happened yesterday in Sharm el-Sheikh that is very important, it's a last-minute invitation of the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. And I'll tell you why. Because for a long time, Israel is saying the next step in Gaza will be without the Hamas and without the Palestinian Authority. It will be with the Palestinians, but we don't know which kind of Palestinian. It was not very clear. The Israelis, for a long time, are saying what they don't want. But so far, we never heard what they really want. So now we put on the table something that we all want. It's going to be the Palestinian Authority after changes and reforms that we're supposed to have. It's going to be the international community and mainly the Arabs that will be involved on security level and on rebuilding Gaza. The idea of Donald Trump, Tony Blair, it's not going to work as it was planned, but it's going to be another international body. But the priority now is to bring immediately, massively, humanitarian aid into Gaza. The situation there for the people, it's terrible.
Of course, a more immediate need, definitely. I want to go back, though, to the issue of Palestinian statehood, which is really kind of at the heart of this conflict. Mm-hmm. And you played an integral mm-hmm. role in helping Emmanuel Macron to make that decision to recognize Palestinian as statehood. Can you tell us about how that happened and what that moment was like for you?
See, me personally, as a peace activist, I believe in the solution, like everybody. The solution is a two-state solution. Israel being recognized by the Muslim and the Arab world, and Palestine being recognized as well by the Israeli and the international community. Nobody until now came with another solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The question was when it will happen. And me personally, I'm asking President Macron to do it already for the last 4 years. He thought that it was not the right time. So he decided to do it now since this war began. And it's no other solution. If we want to deal with the roots of the problem, which is the Israeli being recognized as legitimate, as having their place in the Middle East, as a Jewish entity in the region by the neighbors, and the Palestinians recognize their right for dignity, for freedom, for independence, nothing will happen if we won't have this
something that goes both ways.
Absolutely. So this is the initiative. I'm very happy that President Macron listened to me and went into it. And what was different this time, that he did not went to it as friends. He brought with him other countries and not Canada and Australia and Great Britain and major countries in the world. And it's creating a dynamic from only two countries at the UN. Now we are 4 countries. The only one who doesn't recognize Palestinian status.
Indeed, a historic step.
It's a historic step.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very
Ofer
much. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, the co-founder and president of the International Forum for Peace.